put everyone down there, and then we'll get started. And I just always like to start by thanking everyone. I know that everyone's time is precious, and maybe we have a little more of it these days, but we appreciate you taking some time to chat with us about our destinations. We're really passionate about them. So it's always great to be able to share a bit of our passion with you guys. This is, I think you heard Carissa say, her favorite of the Exeter destinations, and it's probably Exeter as a whole's favorite destination. If you're familiar with this at all, you might know that this is actually where we started. So we're going to cover kind of the must-see sites, our favorite hotels and experiences, specifically our favorite extraordinary experiences. And this is probably one of our most intensive destinations as far as information goes, just because it is still like a large portion of our business, and it's just one of those destinations that people put on their bucket list, but they don't always know a whole lot about. So we definitely go through a lot of information here. So like I said, this is actually kind of Exeter International's first love. It's where we started back in 1993, and our actual original name was Russia Tourists. So this is a destination, though, that from the moment we started, it has constantly evolved and changed every year. They get new museums and hotels, restaurants. The food scene definitely has developed well over the last 5 years or so. So just things are always changing. And if you have clients who are like, oh, I went to Russia 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it is a completely different experience today than it was then. So I would definitely recommend another trip. Guests that are visiting Russia with us typically are only visiting kind of the western part of the country, so St. Petersburg and Moscow. This is kind of where the majority of the historical and cultural sites are. It's where the historic and modern capital is. So you can kind of see Moscow and St. Petersburg kind of right at the edge there. So that's mostly where people are going to be coming in to visit. We do have guests that go and visit the rest, either doing a Volga Dream Ripper cruise, which I'll kind of touch on, or doing a Golden Eagle Trans-Siberian Express, which kind of goes across from Moscow all the way down to Vladivostok, and I'll actually touch more on that as well. So let's just kind of get into it with some highlights. So Moscow is typically going to be the first stop for most people. Just from a logistics perspective, Moscow has the greatest number of flights connecting internationally. It has 3 airports there, so that just kind of makes it prime for a kickoff point. It's also we sometimes get people doing a Moscow only program because they're taking flights onward to like Central Asia or the Caucasus, because a lot of flights kind of route through Moscow that way as well. If you haven't been, or if you have been, the city it's always breathtaking, and it's really unlike any other city in the world. And I can't get enough of it, and I want to go again and again and again, because there's always something that I've missed or something new that I didn't get a chance to see. So it's definitely a really interesting, lively city. I personally like guests to visit Moscow first and then end in St. Petersburg. I think that it frames the cities nicely that way. St. Petersburg sometimes feels like a living museum. The whole city is kind of this very picturesque, straight out of the history books place. And Moscow is a bit of the old and a bit of the new mixed together and living side by side. So Moscow is not just a seat of political power in Russia in modern days, it's also the country's cultural and commercial center. So it does have those aspects as well. The capital is pretty much dominated by Red Square and the Kremlin, but there are several museums, both old and new, attracting visitors every year. Of course, no visit to Moscow would be complete without visiting the Bolshoi, specifically seeing a performance there. It is kind of the premier theater for Russia. And as with any of our destinations, we can always help clients secure concert, opera, theater, ballet tickets, both in Moscow and in St. Petersburg. For a Moscow visit, we typically recommend at least 3 nights, 4 if they can manage it, because there really is a lot to see. The highlights here for most guests again, the big one, Red Square and the Kremlin, including the Armory Museum and the Diamond Vaults. Then there's also the Tretyakov Gallery, which I'll touch on in a bit, and a visit to Christ the Redeemer Cathedral. And for those with a bit more time and flexibility, we also really love the new Tretyakov Gallery, which, I'll be honest, everyone's going to feel differently, but I like the new Tretyakov better than the Tretyakov. Pushkin Museum and Novodevichy Convent. And that's actually where Peter the Great's sister, was famously imprisoned until lived out her life in confinement. All right, so some other highlights. We always recommend the metro station, even if guests don't want to take the metro as a means of transportation. The metros themselves are a sight. They were these really beautifully decorated and ornate places with like marble and mosaics and stained glass, because they were designed to be like the palaces of the people. So all of the original ones are these just like really beautiful Soviet era stations, and it's definitely worth a visit just to see some of those. Another really interesting tour for those who have a little more time or would like a little more time outside maybe is a visit to Gorky Park. And across the street from that is where the new Tretyakov Gallery is, as well as kind of one of my favorite quick sites, which is the Graveyard of Fallen Monuments. And it's where a lot of Soviet sculptures ended up once they were removed from their original place. So it's just kind of a sculpture garden where these sculptures have come to live out the rest of their existence. One of Moscow's new sites that's really popular, and we recommend everyone to just take a stroll, is ZARYADYE Park. It's located just off Red Square. It has beautiful views of Moscow, as you can see from this photo. I've been to it in different seasons with snow or in full bloom with flowers, and it never ceases to wow. It's really beautiful. There's always a lot of locals about. And in the warmer weather, they'll have like concerts and little things going on Friday and Saturdays. And it works extremely well, like to follow up with a stroll through Red Park, or even for guests to do on their own, on the day they arrive, just to stretch their legs and get outside for a bit. And one of the cool things is it highlights Russia's main regions, including the tundra and the steppe and ice caves. So it has these really unique kind of exhibitions. And the floating bridge, which you can see in the picture, is one of the highlights of the park, and it's actually designed by the same architect that designed the New York City High Line. So a little bit of American connection there. And I mean, like I said, Moscow, you could spend a while here just going through all the museums, and there's just really great ones, and it would be impossible to visit them all. So we always recommend, we try to get to know what the clients are looking for as much as possible, so we can direct them to the museums that are going to best match their interests, to make the best of their time. So a couple others that we love and the clients might really be interested is the Pushkin State Museum. And it's particularly interesting for a couple reasons. It houses the famous Schliemann's gold collection from the so-called site of Troy, as well as it has a large collection of cast replicas of ancient sculptures. I think the best part of the Pushkin is the fine art collection, which has an Impressionist and Post-Impressionist collection, and that's my favorite part of the Pushkin Museum. The new Tretyakov is located adjacent to Gorky Park, and it houses a really fantastic collection of 20th century Russian art, from socialist realism to more avant-garde artists like Malevich. Its counterpart to the State Tretyakov Gallery, which is going to house things more from the 11th century up until the 19th century. So that's kind of what the difference between those two are. One really is just holding the new paintings. And then one of the newest and kind of most impressive museums on the Moscow landscape is the Jewish Museum and Tolerance Center. It opened in 2012, so it's not that new anymore, but still relative to these other museums. And it's thought to be the largest Jewish museum in the world, and it's dedicated to the history of the Jewish community in Russia, including, the Russian Empire. So that includes some other current countries as well. And it goes through all known records through Soviet times. And we can also arrange, there's the Schneerson Library that's located here. We can arrange a private visit to that. That's always a really popular experience for anyone with Jewish heritage interest. So those are just like a few of the museums in Moscow. There's so many more. Like I said, we always try to get to know clients so we know what the best ones to recommend. And then I'm going to do two honorable mentions. One, because it's one of my favorites. So these are less visited, but still really quality and fascinating museums. So you have the State Historical Museum, which is on the right, kind of chronicles Russia's history, and specifically that of Moscow. And it's in this kind of idealistic building that's on Red Square. So the building itself is also quite pretty. This museum is fantastic, but nothing in it is in English, so you really do need a guide to go through here. It sits right on Red Square, so it's very convenient to visit for most of our hotels. The other one is the Cosmonaut Museum. It's a little further out, so you do need a car to get to it. And it's dedicated to Russia's space program and the infamous space race with the US. So if you have anyone interested in like Cold War or space, this is a really great museum. And then nearby is also the VDNK, which is the All Russian Exhibition Center, which is a great visit, especially when the weather is nice. You go and they have all these mini buildings that are designed off of different former Soviet republics, and it has like the famous Friendship Fountain, and it's just a really lovely park for spending a day outside if people have a little extra time to kind of go to the more far-flung museums. Then of course, no itinerary would be complete, especially in Russia, without some of our famous extraordinary experiences. Perhaps one of the greatest highlights and the most exclusive ones we offer is a visit to the Grand Kremlin Palace to see the palace proper, the faceted chamber, and the Turin. This is actually home to some of Russia's earliest czars and the official Moscow residence of the Romanovs. The palace complex here has been really beautifully renovated and is exclusively used by the Russian president for state visits, meetings, and entertaining. The Grand Kremlin Palace is not open to the public, so entrance is made by special arrangement only. And you can see from the picture, it's really kind of this magical palace to visit. Another one that works really well and is a really accessible, extraordinary experience is a private visit to the dome of the Church of Christ the Holy Redeemer. So this is actually a cathedral that has been rebuilt. It was demolished in the 30s under Stalin, but it was meticulously rebuilt to be as authentic as possible. This is actually a picture that I took during winter time from the top. I thought that it's really, so kind of shows in the summertime you have beautiful views where you can see over the city. In the winter, you can go early evening when it's dark and you can get this beautiful lit up view. So Moscow also, people don't think of it as a winter destination, but Russia is actually really, really beautiful in the winter. And I just always like to say that to people. I think it's an underappreciated winter destination. Okay, so the hotels, which is obviously going to be a very big part of anyone's itinerary. With all of our destinations, we're always inspecting our hotel partners, visiting any new hotels that are opening, so that we can kind of know what the best is. And so we do have 3 favorites here, which are going to be the Metropole, the Ararat Park Hyatt, and the Four Seasons. So the Metropole is kind of our newest favorite because for a while we really appreciate it. We would recommend clients to go and enjoy a drink at the bar because it is the historical hotel there. It has been completely renovated recently and it is gorgeous, comfortable, beautiful. The bathrooms are amazing. And it's a hotel that's been there since the reign of Nicholas II, and it's been preserved, so it has its historic elevator going through the really beautiful marble floors and the entryways. And it's also gained a lot of popularity through the book A Gentleman in Moscow, which takes place in the hotel. So it really is kind of the one that we love for its level of comfort and its historical aspects, and its location is phenomenal as well. If you don't know where it is, but you might know where the Four Seasons is, it's located just behind the Four Seasons, a stone throw from the Park Hyatt. And it's, you walk out the side door and you're on Red Square in 2 minutes. So we really think this is a standout option. The Four Seasons is situated just off Red Square, and there are rooms with views overlooking the Kremlin. It opened in 2013, so it is a newer hotel, and it has about just over 200 rooms. They're pretty spacious, very well appointed. Here we really love the premier rooms. They're kind of equivalent to a junior suite at most other hotels. I will say one thing about this Four Season is, unlike the one in St. Petersburg, this one doesn't have any local charm or history. It's just something to keep in mind if that's important for your guests, is that it is a Four Season, but if your guest wants a bit of local flair to their accommodations, this Four Season might not be ideal. The Ararat Park Hyatt opened in 2002, and it had a renovation in 2015, so still fairly new as far as the renovations go. It's a pretty contemporary hotel. It's very beautifully appointed. It sits just beside the Bolshoi Theater, so again, a really great location. And I think this one is really ideal for anyone who's looking for a contemporary hotel with a great location, or if you have younger clients who are looking for something maybe a little hipper or a little cooler, that might be the more ideal. I also always like to mention the Ritz-Carlton. It's just a stone's throw from the Red Square. It has a very traditional style to its decor, as you can see in the bottom right. The service here is excellent, as you would expect from any Ritz-Carlton. The rooms are comfortable, large. They have a really fabulous rooftop bar. It's got breathtaking views over the city. And so even if guests don't stay here, I think it's totally worth it to go just have a drink at the bar and take in that view. And I would like to also mention, we don't require hotels to be booked with us, but we typically say it does benefit you. We are going to pay a higher commission, but when it comes to Russia specifically, visa support is tied to the hotels. So if we're not booking the hotels, we can't offer your clients our white glove visa service, which I'll go over a little later, because we can't provide the support for the visa itself. And then I'm just going to kind of do a quick mention here of the Golden Ring. If anyone has a couple extra days to spend in Russia, and they especially want to maybe see something outside of the two big cities, the Golden Ring area is the right choice. It's kind of rural Russia at its best. You have these sleepy towns, ancient churches, quaint monasteries, old wooden homes, kind of taking you back to the 19th century. So overall, the Golden Ring is, if you're not familiar with it, it's made up of a series of small towns, among which is Suzdal, which is kind of the indisputable crown jewel of the Golden Ring. And it's just a maze of narrow roads with thickly forested landscapes, idyllic countryside. Each town has its own little Kremlin. A Kremlin is just kind of a fortress, like a gated fortress. And so each town has their own little Kremlin or citadel. The church, you see these churches like you on the left here with the bulbous onion domes. A lot of times they're wooden. You have really lovely orchards and gardens. It's just a really lovely place. And when guests do come out here, we like to have them do an evening with a local family where they can enjoy a home-cooked meal, maybe watch a local choir performance. So they get a real feel for the real local feel here. I do always like to say, while it's a beautiful region, it might not be for everybody. Accommodations are going to be more modest. It's certainly worth the time spending a night or two exploring it, but I just always like to, set that expectation. The other expectation setter is that it can be really expensive quickly to go to this region, and that's because we have to send a car driver and a guide out with you because the quality of the drivers and the guides locally just isn't there. So we want to make sure we're providing the best service. So, we have to send that guide with them. And that's also a benefit. It means that the guide goes with them on the train to make sure that they know when to get off and, all of those things. It's definitely worth a visit, maybe not for every client though. And then the big question is how you get between the two capital cities of Moscow and St. Petersburg, and that is the Sapson. We are always going to recommend the SAPSON over doing a flight. It has multiple classes of service. We recommend business or first class. It takes about 3.5 hours in your city center to city center. It's extremely efficient. It has regular departures every couple hours throughout the day, and we can typically get tickets about 45 days in advance, and we recommend pre-purchase, especially first class is relatively small in the train, so if you have clients who are first class all the way, we definitely want to get those tickets right when they open. And we, typically are purchasing these tickets for clients when they're on a full service program. It is possible to fly, but by the time you get to the airport, go through security, wait, fly, deplane, and then make the trek between the airports and the city center, it's actually a much longer ordeal than just doing the SAPSON, and sometimes more expensive. So into St. Petersburg we go. Once named the Venice of the North, it's really a city that couldn't be more different than Moscow is. Muscovites actually say that the city is the most un-Russian city of all Russian cities. And I guess that's kind of the idea that Peter the Great had when he founded it. Today, the city is a protected UNESCO World Heritage Site, and you can find beautiful Art Nouveau and Baroque and Rococo architecture. It's kind of the world capital for culture. St. Peter's has a really rich history of art, architecture, music, theater. So it's kind of a standout for a cultural destination for the world. Here, we recommend 4 nights, ideally 5, more if they can do it. I could stick you in St. Petersburg for a week and never run out of things to jam pack into your day. A first-timer's trip here is typically going to include visits to Peterhof if it's in the summertime, so they can see the fountains, Catherine Palace, the Hermitage, the Church on Spilled Blood, and you can actually see that kind of in the picture on the left here. Peter Paul Fortress, and not always on every itinerary, but I do recommend it, Yusupov Palace. For those that are kind of looking for an exceptional palace experience, especially if maybe they've done a cruise before and they've already seen Catherine Palace, or they just don't want to deal with the crowds of Catherine Palace, our favorite alternative and least visited palace is Pavlovsk. It has an astounding history. It underwent massive renovations. And just like a quick fun fact about it, it's a lot of French people go there because it has pre-revolution, like the most pre-revolutionary original furniture of any palace, because where in France it was all destroyed, Pavlovsk was actually furnished right before the French Revolution, so it was all brand new right before the French Revolution happened. So it's really, if you have anyone who's interested in historic design or furniture, it's a really amazing palace. And the building on the right in the picture is the General Staff Building of the Hermitage Museum, which houses the Impressionist collection. So some highlights here. So in town specifically, you have the Bronze Horseman of Peter the Great. That's just right in front of St. Isaac's Cathedral on the river. And just another little fun fact, the Golden Dome of St. Isaac's was actually painted brown during World War II in order to help keep it from getting bombed during the raids. It did sustain some damage, but survived mostly intact thanks to really great artistic skills of brown painting. Peter Paul Fortress, of course, it's where St. Petersburg was founded, and it's also where the Romanov monarchs and their families are buried. You have the Church on the Church on Spilled Blood. It does kind of resemble St. Basil's a little bit, but with the colorful onion domes. But the inside here is just as beautiful as the outside because it's almost covered completely in mosaics. And then I want to highlight just a couple museums. Again, there's so many here. The largest, most impressive, the one that's going to be on just about everybody's itinerary is the Hermitage. You could easily spend a week in here looking at the collections. You have everything from ancient Egyptian to Impressionist pieces, traveling exhibition, And I mean, there's certainly something in here for everyone's interest, and even if they're not people who are into art itself, the building is a historical masterpiece. So the museum is comprised of 6 buildings, 5 of which are open to the public. And the museum, it's hard to believe, actually only houses a small fraction of the collection of the museum. If you have anyone who's really enthusiastic or wants an off the beaten path experience, or maybe they've just been to the Hermitage before and they want to see some more, we have an extraordinary experience, which is an exclusive behind the scenes visit to the Hermitage storage room. So it's kind of where all the stuff is kept that isn't in the Hermitage, and it's really beautiful. Another thing that we can offer is an after hours visit to the Hermitage to see the museum without the crowds. For those who might not have the budget for that, we do try to arrange tours to the Hermitage either on a Wednesday or Friday, because the museum has extended public hours, and that normally means, you know, the bigger crowds, the group tours have gone home for the day, so you get slightly reduced crowds to go see what is arguably one of the most popular sites. And then a couple of years ago, the Hermitage actually moved its Impressionist collection to the General Staff Building, which is just across the square from the Winter Palace building. So we recommend kind of splitting these up, doing 2 half-day tours. Otherwise, it's just a lot of museum all at once. And luckily, the General Staff Building is not quite as popular, so it's actually really easy to get in without, you know, having massive crowds there. Another favorite and newer museum on the scene is the Fabergé Museum. I consider it a must-see. It's built within the Shuvalov Palace, and it houses the celebrated Fabergé collection that's owned by Russian oligarch Viktor Beckelsberg. And the collection boasts over 1,500 choice pieces of Fabergé, which outranks the comparatively small collection that's kind of more known at the Kremlin Armory Museum. So it's a really beautiful collection. It has really gorgeous Fabergé eggs, which are the ones that everyone wants to see. Another one is the Russian Museum. It's situated on Art Square, and it has one of the largest collections of purely Russian art, located in a former palace. It's a massive collection. We kind of suggest starting with some of the ancient Russian icons and ending with the most famous 20th century Russian painters, including like Kandinsky. A particular note is the museum's rarely seen Repin collection. Greg, the founder of Exeter, will always talk about this one. So it includes even imperial portraits that were hidden during the communist period to save them. And if you don't know, Repin kind of has the feel of French Impressionists, but it's uniquely Russian. And the museum was actually started by Alexander III to compete with the Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow, and it really does. And then I did include a picture here, but I like to mention it because Stella Bailey, one of my colleagues who also does Russia and myself, it's one of our favorites, and that's the Political History Museum. It highlights St. Petersburg's more recent history, but it also just kind of goes over Russian history for the past 125 years. And for anyone who really wants a better grasp on Russian history and politics, this is a must-see. And then, of course, extraordinary experiences again. We have these in St. Petersburg, just like in Moscow. They are mostly all on our website, which you can review. And we do everything from private tours of museums to one of our favorites, which, especially for families, is a climb to the top of the steeple at Peter Paul Fortress. You kind of go in through the steeple of the cathedral with the gentleman you see in this picture, who's the clockmaster, and you climb through winding steps and wrought iron ladders, and you get to see the ancient clock mechanism that keeps time for the clock on the outside. Depending on what time it is, you might be able to hear the cast iron bells ringing. You might get to help wind the clock. So it's a really interesting experience. And the climb is really, I mean, you do have to be somewhat fit to go do it and comfortable with tight spaces, but it is really a fascinating experience. Another one that we actually see a lot of interest in is a visit to this gentleman's apartment. This is the gentleman who owns it. He doesn't actually live here. He purchased these Russian apartments and refitted them so that they were exactly what an apartment from the 1930s Soviet era would look like. And it's just a really cool experience. And he also has a massive collection of lacquerware, traditional Russian lacquerware, and you can see it in the photo. So anyone who's interested in that specific kind of art for Russia, or just wants to see what a really traditional Soviet era apartment looked like, this is a great experience. And if you want to see more, you can always look on our website or ask us what we have. And of course, we're always happy to come up with something special and unique for your clients based on their interests. And then hotels, of course. So our favorite hotels in St. Petersburg are going to be the Roccaforte Hotel Astoria, and the Four Seasons Lion Palace, as well as the Belmont Grand Hotel Europe. The Astoria is kind of our in-house favorite. The loyalty I think our staff feels for the Astoria is maybe just below what the Astoria's employees do. It's one of the most historic hotels in St. Petersburg. It opened its doors in 1912, and it's survived and remained a hotel throughout its history. And despite the fact that it is renovated, it retains a lot of its historical features, these beautiful stairways and doorways, and it's just really lovely. We like to say that this is a historical hotel renovated right, all the modern amenities with the look and feel of a traditional historic hotel. It also has a really lovely restaurant, the Cafe Astoria, with views overlooking St. Isaac's Cathedral. So even if guests aren't staying here, they can come dine there. I also like to say our favorite room here are the junior suites with cathedral views. The views over St. Isaac's are just really gorgeous. Another hotel favorite is going to be the Belmont Grand Hotel Europe, another historic hotel. It's located just next to the Russian Museum, and it has really lovely restaurants with traditional food, traditional decor, and really excellent service. It's well located, so walking distance to a lot of the sites. And then the Four Seasons has about 183 rooms, including 25 suites. One thing we like to let you know in case you have, a bigger group or family going is rooms in the same category here can vary greatly in size and floor plan, and that's just mainly due to the fact that it is a historical building. And then we think that some of the most beautiful rooms are the terrace rooms located on the 5th floor, which is actually what the picture is for here for the Four Seasons Lion Palace. These rooms have lovely outdoor space. They do have a couple of steps between the front door and the bedroom space, which you can't see in this picture, but that just means that it might not be the right fit for everyone if you have clients who aren't okay with stairs. And then kind of our honorable mention is the Lotte Hotel. It's located on the same square as the Astoria, so really lovely location, which is just a short distance from the Four Seasons, just in case you only know where one of the hotels is. And from a luxury standpoint, it kind of sits somewhere between the Four Seasons and the Astoria. And like many hotels in our parts of the world, the room categories can be a little quirky. So we definitely suggest, like, if you ever have someone interested, just chat with our team about your client's particular needs, and we can kind of point you in the right direction. As you can see from the picture, it doesn't have a particularly Russian feel, which is just something we like to point out, since the price point does usually fall just below the Four Seasons. And then we're going to kind of shift gears slightly. I just want to kind of talk about two other products that we offer for Russia that aren't our own products, but we are able to sell them and book them for you and for your clients and still offer commission. So We offer this fabulous luxury river cruise, the Volga Dream. Uh, it offers beautiful itineraries going between St. Petersburg and Moscow. It also has ones that go from Moscow down to Astrakhan, so can kind of do like the longer Volga. And it's kind of a floating hotel, and the real benefit here is you get to see all of these rural tiny villages of Russia in complete comfort without having to get on a plane, a not nice plane, every so often, every couple of days to go to a new town. It also has excellent lectures and music performances on in the evening to kind of round out the Russian experience. And there are lots of, river cruises available. And so I just like to point out the reason this is the one that we sell and promote. And, like a lot of other ones, it is smaller. So it averages 80 to 100 passengers per sailing. The food is really excellent on board. And also the staff here typically has worked for the company for a really long time because it's family owned. So they feel pride in what they do. But the big difference is when you do the city stay component. So when you go to St. Petersburg and to Moscow, you actually stay in a centrally located 4 or 5-star hotel, depending on which program you pick. It's either a 4 or 5-star hotel, rather than what almost every other river cruise does, which is staying on the ship, which is problematic. And that a lot of times you're docking 45 minutes outside of the city, which makes it difficult to enjoy dinners or a performance in the evening, or just kind of walk around and enjoy the city. So that's really the reason that we love it. And like I said, it's just a great way if you have clients who want to see more of Russia. This is the way to do it comfortably. So like I said, there's 2 main kinds of programs. There's either Moscow to St. Petersburg, which is the most common, and whichever way they go, it's 6 nights between the 2 cities. And if you'd like some more information about it specifically, you can reach out. We are also going to do a webinar just on the Volga Dream. So I'm not going to go too into it, but I just wanted to mention it. And then the other product I just want to briefly mention is the Golden Eagle Trans-Siberian. This is kind of the only way to get across that, if you remember that map at the beginning, how expansive Russia is, this is the way to get across it. So you can go from Moscow to Vladivostok. And that gets clients to some really interesting places. So whether it's exploring Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia or barbecuing on the banks of Lake Baikal, it is really the most convenient way to get across the Siberian Peninsula and across Russia to see these places. The train also has departures along the Silk Road, so that includes like stops in Almaty and Tashkent. And we do have those departures and itineraries on our website. My colleagues Stella Bailey and myself actually journeyed on the Golden Eagle Trans-Siberian last year because they'd done some renovations to the carriages and we wanted to check that out. And I will say it's a really unique opportunity for the train lover, the history lover, the person who just really wants to kind of go to those lesser known off the beaten track places, but do it comfortably. So if you have any questions about that as well, please do let us know. I'm happy to talk about it. And so we've kind of talked a bit about Russia as an overall destination, places and sites to visit, but just kind of, if you haven't worked with us before or haven't specifically worked with us with this destination, just kind of how we put it together. A lot goes into designing these programs, and so we want to make it as flawless and effortless for both you and the client. So our expertise is really setting up the itinerary, and that expertise comes from the fact that the owner of the company, Greg Tepper, and our president, Gwen Kozlowski, really invest in our knowledge, sending us across the Atlantic to check out this. Unfortunately, I am going to miss my annual trip to Russia this year, but I have gone to Russia every year since I started at least once, to make sure that I have all of the knowledge in place to tell people exactly what's going on and anything new that's happening. We also have an office in Moscow and St. Petersburg that are available to clients 24 hours a day when they're traveling. So that can offer ground assistance if there is anything that comes up, as well as if they need to make a last minute change, that office is there to help them with that in case it's, the middle of the night for us and they just need to make a quick change. And while we do have sample programs on our website, please check them out. I do like to say those are just kind of a jumping off point. We can customize that. That's what we specialize in, customizing it. So we'll make it exactly however clients want it, as far as their preferences, their pace, their interests. And then I do want to mention, I know cruising has taken a hit with the current situation, but I do want to mention shore excursions in case you have clients interested, and especially since St. Petersburg is without a doubt our most popular port for shore excursions. Again, we have our own office in St. Petersburg, which helps a lot. We do have sample 2 and 3 day itineraries for shore tours on our website, and again, those can absolutely be customized. And if you have clients doing this, it's never too early to talk to them about private shore excursions. And if you know for a fact that they want to go the private path, this is kind of any place on a Baltic cruise itinerary, this is the place where it's worth going private, in our opinion. And so I just kind of want to mention why, if you're not familiar with how ships dock in St. Petersburg. The times between each area where the ships dock to the city center, so like large ships, so anything that's over 500 passengers, docks about 45 minutes outside of the city. The smaller ships, which dock in the city, so to speak, on the English embankment, are roughly 20-minute walk from the Hermitage. So those ships will include the smaller ships of like Seabourn and Silversea and Regent ships. However, even if they are slated to dock in the city, there's a number of things like high tides, winds, things like that. Sometimes just if someone important is coming along and you can't dock on the embankment there, it has happened that the ships will have to dock at the main terminal, which is 45 minutes outside the city. And the river ships actually dock much further into St. Petersburg, roughly 1 hour away from the Hermitage. So it does get busy in the summertime with ships, which is why private here really does make a difference. And then probably one of the things that we get the most questions on for Russia is visa. I'm sure you all know visas are required to go to Russia. For those that are flying in and out of Russia, you have to obtain a full Russian visa. As well for us, even if you're doing a shore tour, if they want to go outside of St. Petersburg, like Moscow, they would still need a full Russian visa. We do offer a really convenient program called the White Glove Visa Service. So basically, we have a pared down, easy to understand questionnaire that clients fill out. They send that along with their passport and extra passport photos to us, and we kind of take it from there. And as I mentioned earlier, that service is only possible if we're booking the hotels, because then we're getting the visa support documents. If clients are doing a shore tour and they're staying in St. Petersburg, the St. Petersburg general area for the shore tours, we can do a blanket visa, and that's automatically included in their program. It's the same kind of visa, like shore tour visa, that the cruise ship would offer to their own passengers. So it's no extra hassle for you or the clients to do a private program versus one through the ship. And then I do just want to mention, in case you read an article about it or heard about it, Russia is promoting an e-visa program. Unfortunately, America is not on the approved list, so American passport holders can't take part in that e-visa program yet. We are hoping in the future that that's going to be open and available to our clients, but for the moment, they do still need a full Russian visa for land-based programs. And then I always just like to give you a picture of us, and it seems like this cut off just a little bit, cut off Lee here. So this is kind of our experts for Russia, as well as the Baltic, Scandinavia, Turkey, Central Asia, the Caucasus. So we have Lee Landis. She's really phenomenal, especially with the VOLGA Dream. she's been working with them on the VOLGA Dream since it opened. Um, Stella Bailey, and myself. So if you ever have any questions, we are always standing by to help you or answer anything for you.